Anybody who really understood what's going on the global stage right now with this and was able to see what the World Economic Forum is talking about now with this Great Reset business, they themselves have said now that the Great Reset is all about coupling with sustainable development. They've made it very clear now. So they're saying openly in their own literature that climate change and the pandemic are very closely linked together, and that the pandemic in particular is the perfect opportunity to exit everything into sustainable development. That's what they're saying. I don't say that. That's what they are saying.
Minutes, 15 seconds.
Vehicle flight pressures.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Hello and welcome, independent researchers, skeptics, and all of humankind, to Shadow Citizen. Shadow Citizen will explore the shadows of an alternate reality. Your hosts, Rachael L. McIntosh.
All right, everybody, we made it through another week. Excellent. This week we've got Patrick Wood with us, which we all know is the penultimate having to do with technocracy. And I interviewed him last time we had Shadow Citizen running, and he was an excellent guest. I think he came on twice. And then I saw he was doing something to do with being able to talk, about. So I'm going to have him talk and tell us what he's doing right now. Patrick, take it away.
That's an open-ended thing. Could I sing a song? I get my guitar down.
Go ahead.
Well, the whole idea of technocracy in America and in the world is really starting to catch on. I've been talking about this now and writing for about 11 years, 12 years now.
Yeah.
And that was, that whole thing was discovered on the heels of my research into globalization in general and the global elite. And when I discovered historic technocracy, it immediately caught my eye because I knew it was related to what the global elite had formerly called the New International Economic Order. Mm-hmm. George Bush Sr. called it the New World Order. Klaus Schwab calls it the Great Reset now. Mm-hmm. AOC calls it the Green New Deal. City planners all around America call it smart growth. The names go on, but the origin of it is all the same. It's historic technocracy dating way back to the 1930s. And we don't necessarily have to go into all of that stuff, but what I want to say is people are starting to wake up to some of the things that I've been saying and writing about. I've written 2 books on technocracy since I first started, as you know. Technocracy Rising was the first one. And then Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order was my second book. And for all the people who scoffed at, technocracy, that's nonsense. It's communism, you fool, or it's fascism, you idiot. I've had all the criticism leveled, by people that think they know everything about everything. And what's happening right now is that people are starting to get the idea, hey, it really is technocracy. This is really what's going on today. Can't be explained any other way. So the whole mindset is changing right now. And we're seeing journalists, investigative journalists coming in and other writers coming in now and seriously studying technocracy in context of its history, and moving the needle forward and trying to understand what's going on today in those terms. So there's lots of really good journalists coming out now that really, really get it. Just to name a couple, James Delingpole, the journalist in England, it totally gets it. Dr. Joseph Mercola, the very well-known health expert, one of the largest alternative health sites in the world, totally gets it, has been writing about it now, very outspoken. Epoch Times had me on the videos program the other day with Joshua Phillip, and I have to say, Joshua he didn't necessarily kind of know it all initially, but man, we talked and he's like, yeah, I see it. So the whole mood is kind of changing towards technocracy. It's not just thrown out with the bathwater anymore. And things are popping quickly now. Everybody tells me.
Yeah, everybody that I'm talking to feels as if we're in a state of emergency right now. It's an emergency and they have to get their book out or they have to talk to their neighbors. And I have to say, personally, I felt like this probably closer to 2008. So, and I'm not saying it's because I'm smarter than it, but I'm seeing people are kind of getting to the point where they're realizing there's something beyond this government that we're dealing with.
Yes. I use the analogy of a big building going up somewhere, maybe where you live. You're driving down the street that you've driven on every day for a long time, and you're just cruising along and you look over to the left or the right, all of a sudden, boom, there's a building. It's going half done. And it's like, you're just there 3 days ago and it wasn't there. How did that building go up so fast? People say. I've experienced that frequently in the Phoenix area because there's a lot of construction going on. But what in a big project like that requires a lot of planning, what people really don't kind of get a grip on is that a big building may take years and years to actually get to the point where they can pour the concrete or even do the earthwork. They have to go through engineering, environmental studies, finance, applications, this, that, and the other. This process is a long process of getting planning before you ever see any building activity on that piece of ground. But when they start, woof, there it is. It just shows up in your face. Well, the groundwork for what we see today has been in the planning phase since at least the early 1970s. They've been jockeying this thing around to get to the point that they have enough power today to literally start, taking over society.
Okay. Now, you just used the term they. They are taking over. Who is they?
I'm talking about the technocrat core that are bringing these policies to us. We can kind of define that maybe a little bit as we go along. Originally, it was the members of the very elite organization called the Trilateral Commission that coined the phrase New International Economic Order.
Right.
And they wrote about it extensively back in those days, and we reported on that. That is, my co-author, Antony Sutton, and myself reported on that. But this is where this whole idea started of a resource-based economic system. This is otherworldly to what we know as a price-based economic system. That's the basis for free market economics, where you have capitalism, free enterprise, and so on. A resource-based economic system is altogether different because it doesn't use price as an adjustment. It uses direct control by the people who are running the economic system. This is what technocrats called for back in the 1930s. They wanted FDR to declare himself dictator just to put technocracy in, install it. And after he was dictator, get rid of Congress, get rid of the court system, just let them take over everything and run it. It was a little bit like the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
Okay.
Where everything was just run by the system, and you couldn't get in or out of it, but somehow the system always knew what you were doing. And if you were doing some no-no, they'd jump on you right away.
Yeah.
So, you know, fast forwarding from 73 onwards, the Trilateral Commission passed it off to the United Nations. It started in 1974 with a general resolution at the UN called the Establishment of a New International Economic Order. They used the same language, exactly. Then they brought in the idea of sustainable development in the mid-'80s. And then in 1992, the famous Rio de Janeiro conference, they brought Agenda 21 to light. And that was the agenda for the 21st century. Well, we're in the 21st century now, right?
Yeah.
And the plan, the agenda is being worked out. It's no mystery. But you see, this thing, what we see today has been in the planning stages for a very long time. Now everybody's realizing, oh my gosh, this is moving so fast. What can we do? It's just like, we feel like we're getting overrun. And in a sense we are. But as soon as they were able to, this group of technocrats, if you will, the micromanagers of the world, as soon as they got enough power to assert it, they did. I knew this would happen way back when I first started looking at this. Said these guys are engineers and scientists. They understand how to build a list of requirements. You know, if this happens, then we can expect this to happen. And so they had this planned out meticulously from the get-go. Maybe they had some mid-course corrections. But what's really interesting, I've said for a long time that the politicians of the world today, especially our politicians, are the useful idiots for these technocrats. Okay, when I say technocrats, let's talk about the Jeff Bezos, the Eric
Yes,
Schmidts,
please do, yeah.
the Jack Dorseys, the Elon Musks of the world. These are the uber rich people, right?
Yes.
That are so powerful now with technology that nobody really understands in the public's domain anymore. Nobody can grasp what Google is doing behind the scenes anymore. But these people have accumulated enough power where they are exercising direct control over society now.
Yes.
Like booting the president.
We see this all the time on Facebook, Twitter. It's people are becoming directly affected by it. So they can see this now, but they couldn't before.
Right. And the very foolish politicians who think that they somehow are controlling big tech, I got news for them. They can't touch them. You know, they have hauled big tech leaders into Congress last year, especially. I can just picture it in my mind where a Zuckerberg would show up and a Dorsey would show up and they'd give him, you know, you dirty, you can't do this. You know, Ted Cruz would just go ballistic and turn red, and he'd really give it to him. Yeah. And you could just see these guys walk out the door, you know, basically just thumbing their nose at the whole thing. Nah, you know, we're out of here. Let's go back to work.
Yeah, let's go back to Hawaii, our new island that we just bought in Hawaii. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So the government has no control over these big tech entities now, and they are truly global corporations now. They have escaped the national borders of the United States. You can't think of them as US bound. The fact that they have their headquarters here means nothing. They're now global organizations, and they're acting that way. What's really interesting, just today, this is breaking news.
Okay, let's hear it.
Just today, a story came out that caught my eye immediately, and it was it emanated from Russia, of all places. And Vladimir Putin has seemingly gotten the picture about what's going on here. And here's the headline to the story. Tech giants are becoming competitors to the nation state. It's exactly what I've been saying for 10 years. These people will ultimately displace and replace the political leaders of the nation state. And you ask, well, why would Putin come out with something like this? Well, listen, you're looking at with him, you're looking at the most shrewd micromanager of a communist, almost dictatorship in Russia,
Mhm.
This guy knows when people are after him or his job, he's got a radar like nobody else in the world. He feels threatened by these people. Can you imagine that? And so he's put two and two together and he says, you know, they have the power to exercise direct control over society, and basically they're draining power away from him. It won't end well there's going to be a battle brewing here pretty soon where our politicians will finally get an idea that they also are being threatened, and that if they have some cooperation with big tech today, big tech could just as easily eat their lunch tomorrow, and probably will. There's an old saying, if you dance with it.
When you bring this up, can I ask a question? Here
Yes.
in Rhode Island, we're working on different legislation that has to do with, you know, the 5G stuff, the geoengineering stuff, things that these giant bodies that are not really American anymore, they're
Right.
global. Is this even worth it to do local legislation about stuff like this?
Well, it depends on the legislation, but as I recently in 2018 started Citizens for Free Speech, which is a nonprofit organization to support and defend the First Amendment, we are strongly advising for local activism to take place, where people get back into their own communities, cities, counties, and so on, and to some extent, perhaps their state. If the state is friendly, if you can find a way to get into the Senate, state Senate, or the Assembly to do some good, that's great. But at this point, the last firewall that we have is the city entity, the county entities.
Counties, yeah.
And binding resolutions can go a long way to, or not resolutions, but binding, legislation in cities can go a long way to put the kibosh on technocrat agendas. For instance, some cities have outlawed facial recognition software. That's part and parcel of the implementation of technocracies, to have control mechanisms, sensors like they have in China. There's some cities have outlawed predictive policing software based on artificial intelligence and facial recognition and tracking and sensors and so on throughout the city.
Okay.
So there have been cities that have insulated themselves from some of this. I was thinking about one town, I can't remember the name of it, it's out by San Bernardino in Southern California. A group of citizen activists got together with the city council and convinced them that Agenda 21 was a threat. And the city council outlawed Agenda 21 and anything to do with sustainable development in their city limits.
Wow.
Boom, boom. Just, wow. You don't hear about this in the news because you never will.
For good reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you can go check local newspapers on this stuff and you'll find, something about it, but you'll never hear it beyond just that city, that town, or whatever.
Okay.
But towns have, town councils, city councils have incredible power. The county sheriff also has incredible power to stop unconstitutional things that are going on in the county. If they would, they could. So we're really telling people, get back local, get into your local community, talk to people, run for a board of some kind, get a foothold, get into the mechanism and share your ideas with other people to set them straight again. Hopefully drive out some of the wokeness and stuff that's infiltrated communities all over America.
Yeah.
So
I would have to say, from my experience here, it's more the lobbyists who are the quote unquote experts, because it's a revolving door. They're in government, then they're in this industry, they roll in, and all of a sudden they're the experts, and people don't really know much about a lot of this stuff. So they're in government, they want to do the right thing, and then the next thing you know, the bill comes out. It's like, oh, this is an industry bill.
Yes.
So this is
what
we're bumping into here.
Yeah, I'll tell you, if there was one ultimate bill that if you could ever get it introduced into any state, it would be this: that every legislator must write their own bills, and that nobody else is allowed to write a bill. Nobody. No secretary, no aide, no nothing. That the individual senators and assemblymen in your state must create their own legislation. Nothing accepted from lobbyists, whatever, because that's what they do. The lobbyists go back to their attorney firms or whatever, and they write up these complex agreements that nobody can understand, or legislation. And then they just give them to a congressman or to an assemblyman or to a state senator and say, here's your legislation. Oh, okay, I'll put that in and put my name on it. Shoot, there it is. In my estimation, that is flat out plagiarism. And it's dangerous because they don't know what hooks these lobbyists have put in to try and bury us. So a lot of stuff gets passed. Remember when Nancy Pelosi was passing Obamacare?
Yes.
1,750 pages or something in the bill. Everybody was complaining there wasn't enough time, in Congress wasn't enough time to read it. And she said on the floor of the House, she says, you just have to pass it to find out what's in it.
Classic. Yep. Yeah.
What? What? Yeah, make it law, but you don't know what it is. Just vote for it. And then you'll find out what's in it. Oh, that's really cute. Well, that's what happens when lobbyists write the bill. Nobody would think that Nancy Pelosi penned 1,757 pages of complex legislation.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. These are all off-campus, consultants and lawyers writing this stuff. They have no business being involved in America and policy that affects citizens. That's what we elect these people for, to write the legislation, to reason out what we need, don't need, to listen to the people, find out what the people need. We don't need these other idiots. So the greatest legislation in the world, in my opinion, would be that no congressman, no senator, whether state or federal, could introduce any legislation that they personally did not write.
Sounds like
that would change things.
That would definitely be a step up. Yeah.
Oh, half of them would never introduce anything because they can't put two sentences together to make a paragraph.
I know. I used to work for a defense company, and I was a registered lobbyist at that point. And I know for a fact that you walk in, you give them the legislation pre-made, and you say, wow, we have this defense contractor, they have a lot of jobs here in this state. So why don't you pass this in? And they do.
Yeah. If you want your contributions at election time, just submit it. Mm-hmm. See what happens. It's a crapshoot, but hey, submit it. It might pass.
So you're saying bring it back down to the very local municipalities, cities,
yes.
And get involved with that.
Yes.
This brings me back to this federal thing. If you're at the local level, the local law, does it trump, quote unquote, trump the federal, or is it the other way around?
In many cases, it does.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that people just don't recognize, how sovereign the city entity really is in America.
Yeah.
It has a lot of influence and power that that even corporations can't legally break. A good example of that, I think, is when a big box store like a Costco or a Home Depot comes into a little smaller town, they have to go to the city council to get building permits, right? So they go in with their big plans and, we're going to buy this property over here. We're going to put this big store up and blah, blah, blah. And we want a permit. There have been dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of cities, little towns across America that said, no, you're not coming in here. We don't want you. You'll drive local business out of business. We don't want you here. So get lost, take a hike. And you know what they did? They took a hike. You don't see that in the newspapers because they won't tell you. Mm-hmm. But many cities have said, nope, you're not coming in here. Forget it. There's nothing to take to court here. This is our summary verdict. You're not coming here. Just go away. And they have to go away. Another great example, I think, of local authority, for instance, is with the county sheriff. some listeners might remember the so-called standoff with the ranchers in southern Nevada
Right,
a couple
right.
years ago.
Yeah.
At the Bundy Ranch. It was all over the national news that the BLM had gone out to take some cattle off this guy's property, and there was a big standoff between some, the defense ranchers, many of whom were armed, by the way, facing off against this BLM herd of people that came out from Washington.
Right.
Finally, the county sheriff came out. He way late in the game, but the county sheriff came out and talked to the BLM and said, "You have to leave." And you know what they did? They turned their cars around and they left right on the spot. This is the law.
Yes, look. Now,
Everything up.
here's the problem. Where I live in Rhode Island, we don't even really have sheriffs anymore.
Ah, I heard that.
Yeah. Mostly the sheriffs here just drive, the prisoners back and forth to the courthouse. That's what they do. Because I've visited the sheriff's office, and they know full well that they've got a job, but they've been kind of neutered and they're kind of taxi drivers at this point.
They have, and there's been a movement across the country to not defund the police, but to remove the office of sheriff altogether, because it is the last elected officer of the law in our nation.
Yeah.
And as being an elected official, they don't answer to the city. They don't answer to the feds. They answer to the people. And that's what gives them constitutional authority. Of course, many of them don't know they even have that. Many sheriffs have never read the Constitution. They don't know what they're doing. They're just getting a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the next step up after that? And the whole last-ditch effort, it goes to the coroner? I heard that if everything's going to hell in a handbasket, it's the sheriff, and then if the sheriff's incapacitated, it goes to the coroner, who's like the final arbiter of supposed reason of law and order.
Yeah, I suppose. We have a situation, thanks to these technocrats that are rising up, that have nothing but disdain for our legal system and for our political system. What we have in America today is a growing part of our society that is lawless in nature.
Okay.
Not law breakers. A law breaker is somebody like a speeder going down the street, cop, sirens, pulls you over, you're going 50 in a 30 zone, you're going to get a ticket. Yeah, you hang your head. Oh, shoot, man, I just didn't know what I was thinking there. You submit to the law. You're a lawbreaker, you see.
Yeah.
A lawless person has no respect for the law whatsoever, and they do basically what they think is right in their own eyes. That's a biblical term, by the way, too. Everybody did what was right in their own eyes. Whatever they feel like doing, they do it without respect to any law. Washington is riddled with this concept right now, isn't it? People that are not accountable to the law whatsoever, even though they commit crimes, they should be prosecuted, arrested and prosecuted, but they never are, because they're outside the boundary of the law, they think, and they are lawless. This is very dangerous for a nation that's predicated on the rule of law, which states that legislature makes law, and on, down through the states and the cities and counties, so on, makes the laws, and there's penalties for breaking the law, but fortunately, according to the rule of law, everybody's to be treated equally. Doesn't matter if you're the president or if maybe the president gets to escape some stuff, but it doesn't matter if you're a rich person, poor person, homeless person, you got a big house on the beach, it's supposed to be applied equally. This is the rule of law, and this is America. This is part of our Constitution. So a lawless person is at total odds with everything that American society has ever meant for the last 250 years.
Yeah. All right. So here, I just interviewed somebody who said that the system, which you just talked about, is actually broken for people that don't have money and are in the game in the same way that people that have money and are in the game.
Yes,
No,
you're right.
From that perspective, this person that I was just talking to would say, I don't want to keep this system going.
Well, I know there's a lot of people right now that feel that way, but the danger here is, well, let's say first, the system we should have with a constitution, it is still the best system, I believe, in the history of the world for national government. The fact that it's been bastardized, sliced up, chopped apart, corrupted, doesn't mean the system was bad. It means there's bad people trying to destroy a good system. The answer is not just to throw up the current system and say, we have to do something from scratch again. That's only inviting these evil people to come in and really put the screws to us.
Yeah, and they've rewritten what they want already. It's already sitting there waiting for the moment when they say, "Oh, let's do a constitutional convention or something." And here it is. Oh, we're glad you brought it up.
I know the Klaus Schwabs of the world, like World Economic Forum, would be more than happy to give us a new system.
Yeah.
Or Henry Kissinger, or you name it.
Now, these people that have been perennial, I mean, gosh, how old are these people now? They seem, obviously they're elderly, but they're still going. I
know Henry Kissinger is getting close to 100 now.
Yeah, they're still
going strong, but he's still there and he still speaks.
Yeah. I don't know. Do we just have to wait till these people die out? But it looks like there's all new crop.
There's a whole new crop coming up behind him. It's this, I tongue in cheek say Henry Kissinger because everybody likes to blame him for stuff. And he should be, by and large. He was, in his day, he was one of the greatest influencers of globalization that we had. But today you've got going on in Europe right now, the World Economic Forum that has all the mucky mucks of the world, not only national leaders, but also corporate leaders coming together to talk about how to implement the Great Reset. Mm-hmm. That means they're going to kill capitalism and free enterprise. They say it's no longer suitable for the world. It's completely broken and we need a brand new system. And he's calling it the Great Reset. And everybody, all the national leaders of the world are now saying, build back better. We're going to build back better.
I noticed that during the election, everybody had this same slogan. Like, this is international.
Yes, but consider what that means. Build back better. I give you an example. You bought a house, you buy fire insurance, right? Everybody does. Why would you not buy fire insurance? If your house burns down, you can at least get it replaced or buy another one. So let's say the worst happens and your house burns down. Everything, it just burns to the ground. It's all gone. Your slab is still there, but everything else is gone. You still own the property. And you cry for a while while you lick your wounds. But then hope returns to your, and the insurance company says, well, we're going to give you the fair value for your home. And hope comes back into your heart. It's going to be okay. Yeah. And what do you say? You say to your friends, we're going to build back, but we're going to build back better. That's perfectly logical, right? Mm-hmm. But it's predicated on the fact that your house burned down. These people are using this terminology on us and nobody's even thinking what they're saying. Build back better? What did we lose? Did we lose something? Do we have to build back? Yes, they're taking care of that right now to destroy free market economics. This was the plan from the get-go. And they said, well, we'll build back on the ashes of your burned down economic system. And I say, as I said back in 1976 when I started this, thank you very much. No, you get out of the system and quit manipulating it and leave it alone and everything will just be fine. But keep your meddling hands and your greedy little giant vampire squid tentacles out of government and out of our economic system. Just basically go away and get a real job. That's my rant for the day.
Excellent. I enjoyed that rant. Here's my next question, though. If their new system is predicated on human, the human resource thing, is it more beneficial from their perspective to have more humans or less humans?
To have what elected now? I didn't get the
To
line.
have more humans or less humans? Do they care if we kill each other?
Yeah, certainly less humans. And this was part of Agenda 21 from the get-go, and even way before that, that there's too many people on planet Earth and we need to cut down the population in order to conserve the resources.
Okay.
That's nothing new, and it's been around, that idea has been around for a long time.
So they don't care if we kill each other, if we everybody gets mad at Democrats, Republicans, and we just have a civil war, or we have some sort of disease that takes us over. They don't care.
That would probably fit into their plans if there was some kind of a mass die-off of people. But to the technocrat mind, which is different than the communist mind and the Marxist mind, to a technocrat mind, you and I are just animals on the earth that compete for the resources of the earth. Deer eat grass in the forest, sheep eat grass in the field, cattle eat grass or eat grain in the feed yard, and whatever. Yeah. We're just animals in the big ecosystem of the world. In their mind, we get managed the same way that the animals do. And so they feel that we're no better than, a gopher in the grass, and that we should be managed using the same types of, herd techniques or animal husbandry techniques or whatever that are used on animals. This is patently dangerous. This is the kind of thinking that Nazi Germany had, by the way, when it experimented on people, horrible, horrible experiments, trying to prove some medical thing or test some medical thing or whatever. It led to the Geneva Convention issuing all kinds of international edicts about the right to consent, for medical experimentation or treatment or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is a dangerous, dangerous mentality. So when they look at managing humans, what does that mean? Well, Klaus Schwab at World Economic Forum has given a pretty good outline of the transhuman agenda, which is to genetically modify the human race to be more suitable to live in the reset economic system that they're proposing. And, you listen to this kind of stuff and you say, what the heck are they talking about? This is madness. It is. Somebody needs to call it madness. The emperor has no clothes.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to call this out and say, dude, you are seriously whacked. You need to just go home and get out. We don't want humanity 2.0. But we see this technocrat mentality now, which is very closely aligned with transhumanism, everywhere in living kingdom now. You have companies that are modifying the genes of seeds, trying to make better plants than nature could make. Now you have them, their scientists are making meat in laboratories. It's not good that animals should be raised on farmland or ranch land. They want to do it in a laboratory. This week there's an article. They've now discovered how to create wood in a laboratory. So they're thinking, because they can digitally arrange the atoms in the DNA inside of the wood molecules, that they might even be able to just grow a chair one day in the laboratory.
Star Trek. Yeah, when Star Trek, it just appears. Yeah.
Yes, it's just going to appear over a period of time. And you say, well, okay, what's wrong with Mother Nature and what's wrong with the planet the way God made it in the first place? Not good enough for them. They think that anything they can control somehow gives them a mandate to control it, you see. Mm-hmm. This is kind of a circular logic thing here. If they can control it, they must control it. And so you see all of these things happening in society, scientific stuff, that is changing the nature of living things. Animals are being GMO'd. seeds are being GMO'd, plants are being GMO'd, and now humans are being GMO'd thanks to the new series of vaccines that are coming out right now that are based on messenger RNA.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't understand that, just go look it up on the internet. Don't use Google, go somewhere else, DuckDuckGo or something, and look up messenger RNA, and you'll find out what its role is in changing genetic structure of the subject that it's introduced into. This is very dangerous.
Do you think there's a reason well, obviously older people who are, have other pre-existing conditions, they're falling ill with this COVID-19 and they seem to be obviously dying, and they're giving out people are scrambling. They want the vaccine. They don't want to die. And they're literally going over state lines to get it. And they're scared, they've got people really, really scared. And how do you break I guess that's what I'm doing with my show. I'm trying to introduce people to the idea that there's other information out there that, I don't know, I guess I'm feeling very tense about this vaccine because I watched the FDA approval meeting. And like I said, I used to work for a defense contractor, and I watched the Pfizer people come in, the sales people giving their pitch, and they made a big, big stink about it. We're in a war. They said, we're in a war at least 3 or 4 times. And so the FDA was able to give experimental approval because we were in a war.
Yeah. There's always an emergency to do this kind of stuff. You'd never do those things if there was not an emergency, so something is cooked up. The big picture on the great pandemic, the great panic of 2020, had nothing to do with the virus per se. That was a prop that was used to create a sense of panic and to put fear into the hearts of people globally. And once fear enters a person's life, they're highly suggestible. Any psychiatrist will tell you this. They're highly suggestible. You can suggest almost anything to a person who is gripped by fear, and they will simply do it without questioning. Their screen, their logical common sense screen is removed at that point. That's what they've done with the pandemic. It's important to understand too that all the people that started the Great Panic of 2020, those are the same people that were driving climate alarmism the year before. Same people, same universities, same individuals, same corrupted garbage programming computer models, same thing. They rolled the panic over from climate alarmism over into virus alarmism. And as I've studied that for a long time, the whole climate change business, the problem they had is they ran out of steam with how they could panic people into sustainable development. That was the only thing they ever offered was sustainable development. That would fix everything, they said. You just need to accept our system of sustainable development, you'll be fine. So they use climate change to, make people think if they don't do it now, or the seas are going to rise and we're all going to drown. And people bought that. But it ran out of steam just about the time that poor little Greta Thunberg went to the United Nations and starts hopping up and down, having a temper tantrum and a meltdown. Tried to start a youth movement, get all the youth of the world, behind this to shame the adults into taking action on climate change. They ran out of steam. People just laughed at them. Even the United Nations just, whatever, let's go next, please. And they just basically shooed the whole thing out. The climate change people, I think, this is just my opinion at this point, I believe that they realized that was a dead horse. If they wanted to if the object was to get to sustainable development, climate change wasn't doing it for them anymore. The pandemic could, and here's why. Climate change, the whole climate change alarmism thing never produced a single dead body. Think about that. Never. They don't have anybody they go take a picture of with their little camera. There's the dead body, and it was climate change that killed him. See, the polar bears, however, Oh,
they
polar
got a
bears
lot
are
of good
being
press.
decimated, you know?
Yeah.
And they said, the polar bears are doing fine, by the way, but
Yeah.
that's all they could do. Now they can show dead bodies in pictures of people on a stretcher, and they can show refrigerator trucks, they say, are full of body bags, you know? And this has panicked people to the core. And the whole world has bought it lock, stock, and barrel. Not
Yeah.
just America. Every nation on earth at this point is steeped in this fear. And they're using that as the appropriate emergency, you know, whatever, to say you have to do this, 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 and this if you want to live.
Okay, so now we've got our heads around that this is a big problem. How do we fend it off? I mean, I know you said municipality, but is it going to come down to that, like right at our front door? They might be knocking on the door saying you need a vaccine. Are we at that point?
No, you know, any municipality could immediately terminate social distancing and the wearing a face mask immediately. A municipality could open up its entire economic system, all the stores, whatever, by dictate, by city ordinance. They could just say, we are open for business now, period, and subject. No discussion. Feds, get lost. County, get lost. State, get lost. We're doing this, and you can't stop us, and they can't. Now, there might be some legal challenges, but that comes later.
Okay.
They could do that. There is not one city in America that could not say to its city, the only way anybody's going to get vaccinated in this city is with informed consent. How about that? That would take nothing to do. Informed consent. Even the Nuremberg trials solidified that into international law, that you deserve to be informed and you must give consent once you're informed to the dangers and risks of whatever it is you're getting put into your body. Yeah. That's fair. Well, the insurance company, or the big pharma companies aren't telling the whole story to the people that they're vaccinating, are they?
No.
They're not.
No.
Any city could say, you're going to hear, but you get vaccinated. No problem with that. You want to be vaccinated? You get vaccinated.
Bless you. Go for it.
You should have the right to know what's going on before you do it. That's all we're saying. That's all, you know, any city could do that right now.
Yeah. And that's what's killing me about the COVID thing is I don't think these people that are lining up to get these shots realize we're still in the experiment phase. They're offering to be an experiment.
Yes, there's been no testing, really. There's been no animal testing on this whatsoever. I'm not taking the shot, but the population of the world right now are the guinea pigs for this new class of vaccines.
Yeah.
And they're rushing it through. They've got, you know, everybody's been bamboozled to rush this through on an emergency basis because, oh my gosh, we're all going to die. You know, this is like reminiscent of what Al Gore did, 15 years ago when he said, you know, 10 years, folks, that's all we got. Well, basically, we're all going to die.
I remember when I saw that movie, The Inconvenient Truth, I watched it 2 nights in a row because I was so scared. I said, oh my gosh, I made other people watch it with me. I ended up going to my counselor, you know, my therapist. I was like, I'm really freaked out by this movie. She was like, all right. She goes, you're not the first one to come in and talk about this movie. She goes, let's talk it through. So luckily I had that counselor and she was like, and it was kind of changed, but it was like a good 3 months where I was really freaked out about global warming. And it was like, wait a second, you know, but this is what they're doing to everybody. That's a movie. They spent a lot of money to make a movie. Now they're spending a lot of money to make the news and it's demographically targeted because everything's online. So they know what your pressure points are.
If anybody who really understood what's going on the global stage right now with this and was able to see what the World Economic Forum is talking about now with this Great Reset business, they themselves have said now that the Great Reset is all about coupling with sustainable development. They've made it very clear now. So they're saying openly in their own literature that climate change and the pandemic are very closely linked together, and that the pandemic in particular is the perfect opportunity to exit everything into sustainable development. That's what they're saying. I don't say that. That's what they are saying. And it's in print, it's in writing, right on their website and downloadable journals. So if anybody saw this big picture, they would say, well, wait a minute, you know, something's going on here. This looks like some kind of a con job. You know, they're not telling the truth about what's happening to society right now. And, you know, while the left hand is doing one thing, the right hand is picking our pockets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, all right, now you have, obviously you're in this organization, made this organization. Why don't you tell people about it, how they can find you, how they can find more information about stuff that we've talked about, and I will provide links to the viewers.
Right.
Okay.
Well, my professional website is technocracy.news. That's Technocracy News and Trends. I encourage people to go there and just get in the stream of things, you know, start learning some things.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know anything, you can get my books there. You can get them at bookstores around the country as well, special order, or, you know, other online services. But citizensforfreespeech.org is what I would appeal to every American to beat a path there and join up with us to make a stand against censorship and for the preservation of the First Amendment. And why this is important, Rachel, is that our framers of our Constitution understood that we were to have civil discourse, debate, discussion. We were to work it out on an anvil, if you will, to pound out the policies that we really wanted as a nation. If you take away communication, which is happening right now, with censorship and big media's already gone and big, you know, CNN's already gone. Now they're coming for everybody else to shut us up. They're coming to conservative talk radio to shut them up this time. Now that, you know, libertarians have been declared national security risk and potentially domestic terrorists. Go, what? The libertarians, like Ron Paul, are pacifists, for Pete's sake. They're anti-war. They always have been anti-war. They don't want to kill anybody and disrupt it. But see, the guns are being refocused now, okay? Free speech is under attack like never before in the history of our nation. If we lose it, I can guarantee you, we will lose everything. Without speech, we have nothing. And if you look back in history and consider any of the revolutions in the last 150 years, the Bolshevik Revolution, the German Nazi Revolution, and so on, the first thing they did in every revolution was to come in, take over the newspapers, take over the radio stations, and take over the TV stations. Sometimes the editors and the directors got shot, but they threw them out. They implemented and installed their own propaganda machines to control everything now for the balance of the revolution, right? But that is the way every revolution started in modern history. And they're doing it to us right now. Yeah. Except it's not the Marxists this time, it's these crazy technocrats, like the ones that are running Twitter and Facebook and Amazon and Google, and so on.
Yeah.
These are the ones exerting the power.
How can we tell if our elected officials are knowingly doing what they're doing, or if they're just good people that don't know that they're getting scooped up? How can you tell?
You know, most of them don't have a clue. They're just ignorant.
Yeah.
And you know, the only thing you do about ignorance is to go and try and inform somebody, you know, talk to them, get to know them a little bit, maybe where they'll listen to you. But I haven't found but a handful of politicians in the last 40 years that understand anything what we're talking about. They just don't.
Oh, man.
It's really sad.
I know. And on that depressing note, I swear to God, I just want to say thank you so much for appearing on Shadow Citizen with me. I was so thrilled when I saw you in the newspapers. I said, I've talked to this person before. We got to talk to him again. So thank you so much for showing up. And I will be putting this online. And because the censorship thing, we're disseminating this all over the place. And I want to say about right now we're at 25 different outlets. So if it gets shut off somewhere, somebody else will pick it up. And I hope they copy it and paste it somewhere else too. I'm very pro of that.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate your voice and willingness to step up to the plate or the microphone or whatever, the camera, and make your voice heard. And it, you know, it doesn't mean that we all have to agree with each other on everything. That's not the point. The point is everybody deserves a voice. And if they come up with the stupidest idea in the world, people got to tell them it's a stupid idea.
Yeah, sure.
Get shot down, go back to the drawing board. That's okay. That's the American way. It always has been. But we need to have the chance to talk with each other without throwing the hatchet first and seeing whose skull we can split open.
Yeah.
And if we don't talk, the knives are going to come out and the guns are going to come out eventually, and we'll have a very, very ugly situation in America. I'm not ready for that. And I don't think nobody I talk to wants that. It's just inconceivable what could happen. So we need to stop it. And the only way to stop it now is to resuscitate communication, rip these dumb masks off our faces, quit the social distancing nonsense, and start getting together again in groups of 2, 4, 10, 20, 50, 100, doesn't matter. Start having national conferences again, start gearing up, speeches and other candidates, whatever, and get communication back in the center of our civil society. It's existential at this point. It really is.
It is. Well, thank you, Patrick. Thank you very, very much. Everybody, we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Shadow Citizen with Rachael L. McIntyre.